Hi, welcome back to my channel. Hopefully I'm nice and clear. I'm actually used to doing podcasts at the moment, so I'm always used to keeping my microphone up and close to my face, actually, to be able to be heard. Sorry if the wind's a bit rubbish, that's all I can say. It wasn't until recently that I was actually comfortable to whip out any sort of filming device and in public just sit here obviously talking to myself while people are walking past. It doesn't interest me because obviously I'm probably just not going to see the vast majority of these people again anyway, and it's actually a free country, so I'm allowed to do this. I'm not doing anything wrong, actually. But it's still a little bit awkward. I'll probably just get more used to it as I do it more. So I haven't actually posted any sort of video footage for so long. I've done audio footage and I'm only just going through all my podcasts at the moment to be able to actually pick out which ones are the ones that I want to post. But I wanted to do just like a little bit of a catch up because I feel like, especially as a woman, but as a human being in general, to have a little bit of a catch up and have a little bit of an analysis of life's events in the previous seasons is always something cool to do. So I feel like it's just going to, just as a little preface, probably involve things like friendship breakups, relationships, deciding what is toxic and what is not toxic in relationships, and like systematic, let's just kick it off. I can't bother to like do a massive list, but can we just talk about systematic help within the world? Because I feel like navigating, especially, I'm not going to individualize myself as a neurodivergent individual because I feel like it's unnecessary at this point to make that distinction between myself and the next person, because I'm not actually that highly neurodivergent. I probably am, but not to the point where it hinders my life, to the point where I don't live my life just as the next person. Because I'm not being funny, I think ADHD is definitely a spectrum. I mean, it's very prevalent, let's just put it that way. I feel like adulting, besides the fact of being neurodiverse, is a whole, sometimes even just to disparage what comes up in your head and be like, because I looked at myself and I thought my hair is not literally living its best life at the moment, but I had to cut it off because I had loads and loads of hair glue on the top of my head and I was like, I can't live like this anymore, it's actually really painful, so I had to cut it off. And when I have no extensions in, no one tells the difference, but when I have it off, I get mixed reviews. Like, it is what it is. But I don't know, can we just talk about like the influence of systemic kind of like influence on the individual in institutions, and how, like, I feel like adulting, yeah, especially with, like, I love learning things, right, about the human mind and how we function and why we do things that we do. And I'm not being funny, right, but it's the things when you hear that, how, like, you understand. I've only started to really understand how simple the human mind really is at a baseline, and how similar we are to animals, in a sense, in the fact that it, like from a level of when you give rats like a reward, they tend to go back for the reward. Humans are just the same. This is why the marketing companies are so thriving. And I've always considered myself a bit of an individual to like look behind that sort of thing, for whatever reason, and be like, oh well, I'm not going to buy this. I mean, I think a lot of people do, but I think from a very young age, I've done that. I think everyone must do that, to be fair. But it's like, but then also it's like even on things like diets, yeah, when people decide to go like fat free and stuff, like, as someone that is trying to improve my health at the moment, I definitely understand the benefits of certain diets and how some people's bodies get on better with like gluten, and some people's bodies get better with high protein and low fat and blah blah blah. I do understand that, as a way to improve your health, but I just think sometimes I'm talking about the eccentricities of cutting things out in life. And as someone, like, it's not until recently, for an example, I have looked into narcissism and the fact of there being a spectrum within narcissism, right? And pondering, I'm not yet at a full conclusion, if I'm honest, but I feel like on my blog, if you care to reference this, I've done, is there such thing as a narcissist or an empath? And I think it's tricky to really give a full-blown answer. I think a lot, like, narcissism is actually a trauma response, and empathy can come from a place from individuals that are introverted, that have been parentified or have had to feel that they've had to be exposed to someone with an illness or something that feels that they have to fix them or whatever. And I just think there are aspects to that which I'm exploring. And I think just to keep things on track, just like the one track mindedness of human beings in general, and myself more so, actually, because I feel like, I don't know, I've gone, and I'm always about self-improvement. Yeah, I grew up in a house that was very much geared towards toxic positivity, and I feel like I definitely go through these grinds of toxic positive of wanting self-improvement, like anyone. Desire, like, two emotions that I feel like I didn't used to pay enough attention to. I probably repressed my emotion of desire simply because I didn't have the capacity to look into it. I had pretty adverse childhood experiences, along with, as I've mentioned before, neurodiversity and that side of things. I was very burnt out throughout my entire childhood, so I feel like I definitely repressed my emotion of desire. And I think, and that's something that I've had to work through in adulthood, to really like take back my peace and my power from the stresses that I was exposed to during childhood. That being a separate thing, I'm trying to keep things, because I haven't really done like a ramble of video to video, so I tend to let you may notice I'm not actually looking at the camera very much. I'm looking off into the distance because I'm very much used to doing podcasts now and just allowing nature to take my attention as I ramble. But obviously it's a bit different when there's videos of it. If anyone is wondering, this is a hand massager that I got from Timo. So anyway, I feel like the eccentricities of it of myself, because I feel like I go into these periods of time where I'm like, oh, I want to improve. What do I want to improve in? It's like if you get like any sort of like gratitude journal, or you do any sort of like general thing, it's tuning into my desire emotion to be like, okay, what am I lacking? Like, where do I want to go with this experience? Because, you know, I suppose you have to utilize your resources at the time, and obviously given your life circumstances and obviously what your priorities are and things like that are going to have an influence as to what you're looking to kind of do with your time. And I understand, being a parent myself, that parenting takes quite a lot of time and quite a lot of energy actually from you. And obviously I, for example, I'm an at-home carer slash aspiring YouTuber. No, I'm joking, that's more of a hobby, but you never know, one day I do it for fun. But anyway, definitely doesn't pay the bills, let's put it that way. But as I say, having like the avenue, I feel like the universe works together though, in the fact of, if you have a window of opportunity, that might be where your next experience comes out, which is very apt. I feel like I've definitely heard people talk about opportunity and closing opportunity because of belief systems and eccentricities in life. And I definitely feel like I was like a perfect example of this. A few years ago, when I had mental health issues, I had literally, as I say, that was a completely different thing, but I just remember at that time I had really closed myself off from like a lot of life and a lot of life's opportunities, because I had a really bad eating disorder as well, to be fair, which does take away a lot of your ability to do things, because you're very tired all the time, and it's horrible, to be honest, and it really just doesn't allow you to live your best life. Your brain doesn't function properly, hence mental health issues following. But as I say, it really does take away from your peace and from your, do you know what I mean, drive and everything like that. So I feel like for me it's really important to like tune into that desire now that I sort of have ignored in recent times. And I just feel like it's just a weird, it's very unsettling feeling, actually. I heard when I was trying to look into humans, last thing I'll mention on this topic is the fact that people often choose the most stable route when they're out of trauma and they're not doing things from a trauma response. Because I definitely feel like a lot of my early adulthood life was definitely a lot of my behaviour, I think, was very much, a lot of it, I don't know, I always used to look at it like this. I feel like I did live a full life, but I also think a lot of my behaviour was in part influenced by mental health issues that I had and the trauma responses that I had in those things, aka destructive behaviour and you know, doing things that were not necessarily healthy. I was probably quite normal around young adults, and I'm probably pretty sure, but I would advocate for that, obviously, for the fact that it was kind of of a different level for me, because I had mental health intertwined with that quite substantially. But the point is, the point where I was medicated and things like that, but not being medicated for a while, but I'd say brief bout on sertraline. Anyway, the point is, it's like, it's sometimes that inner struggle to argue with yourself, like, I feel like this is the best route for me because it's the most stable. And being an introvert, I found that I feel like this was where I was going wrong in seasons past, where I was trying to make stable choices and stable, predictable decisions, especially coming from a place of trauma, to a place where I was like isolating myself because I was trying to, because to be honest, I had come from really traumatic, like, last seasons prior, so I feel like I needed that time to stabilize myself in a sense, because I have gone through periods of life where, like, I've been really destabilized by situations and I've not taken the time to actually settle myself, and so I've just gone through life like destabilized, and that sucks as well because that can just put you in a disposition in life in general. So I feel like I needed that stability time, but it's like, at the same time, to recognize that, you know, opportunities will pass you by if you don't seek them out and if you don't use the like, navigate from the sacral and from the desire level, but also, like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Sorry, brief interlude there from a wasp attack. Luckily didn't get stung, but oh my god, I'm not risking that. Sorry, so back where I was saying, I was kind of going off on a tangent, to be fair, what a shock. But I was just kind of saying how I feel like I was getting too introverted before I met what I now understand. I don't know whether to post spiritual content on this channel. I have like a different channel which I kind of sometimes post spiritual stuff on, because I don't want to like mix the two together, because I feel like people that are like really interested in spirituality will go on that channel, but then sometimes I just think spirituality is quite specific to each individual, so I feel like sometimes when I talk about spirituality, it's not always, I don't know, I might talk about it on this channel. I've literally just advertised one of my spirituality videos that I re-uploaded because I was like, oh, it's too spiritual. But anyway, I could just like link the two channels. I hope I'm thinking about doing that. But as I say, before getting into a recent relationship I was in, I was just very much, and I still find myself, because in the last few seasons I sort of like tried to go on this very like predictable train of like, okay, well, I can predict the outcome of this situation if I am X, Y, and Z, and then it closes the door to opportunities that you could involve yourself in, because, and it's human nature actually. And then I didn't feel so bad about it because I was like bringing out my inner reward system, being like, and kind of building my life around it, but because it's sensible life choices. And I think there's nothing wrong actually with, first of all, changing your path and route on a situation, because I think sometimes you can just like customize what your mindset is towards things, because like life is a process of learning and unlearning, realistically. And so if I've learned something that's helped me out, but then I want to learn a part of it, and I kind of go away from the path of that, that's up to me. And there's nothing wrong with that, realistically. But you know, it's just when, you know, especially being someone that talks about narcissists and stuff, and that's why I liked to bring that up earlier on, it's very easy for the human brain to cut and dry an issue, to be like, okay, X, Y, and Z is not good, let's just cut that out. Do you know what I mean? Let's not do that thing that, do you know what I mean? And then there's another level of psychology, you know, I have to just reference the diet industry and stuff like that, where people are like, oh, I can't eat this cake. What do? You eat the cake. Do you know what I mean? And I think this is where my granddad used to have this saying, to say everything in moderation. And I do think to a degree that can be true, and this is why at the very beginning I bring up systemic support systems, because I think there's been a lot of times in my life where, willingly and unwillingly, often unwillingly, coming into life kind of, I hope this was picking up my audio when I wasn't holding it to my mouth, but life support systems like the prison system, like the, you know, I will say I never went to prison, I went to jail, but having to go through that whole process with attending probation and stuff like that has assisted me in a sense. And do you know what I mean? And it helps you to ground. And because I think sometimes, until you have these exposures to things, because I will always do incline to like look at it from a level of God and be like, because I have a very personal relationship with God. I think lots of people do. I was raised religious as well, to be like, well, what is God putting me through in this season where I have to experience this thing? And I'm actually like, do you know what I mean, looking at these life circumstances which I never would have chosen for myself, and I'm actually questioning myself. And I definitely think it's an annoying cycle where you hit something quite substantial and it causes like your belief systems and like maybe your physical side of life to shatter to the point where you have to like rebuild it. And you know, this happened to me recently, for example, when I left my house. I feel like this is just like a whole life story for me, but this is because I hadn't really had like much of an idea for this video. It's more of just like a catch up, so I won't let it like drag on for too long. But you know, these things do happen, and it can be very destabilizing. But I feel like the most annoying feeling that I'm dealing with at the moment, an emotion, is uncertainty and being destabilized and feeling unbalanced in a situation. It's very annoying, and the fear of the unknown. Because I do think when I do all my spiritual stuff, I think sometimes when you have a blank in a situation, it motivates me or shows me that I should be going like on a spiritual level, because I'm a spiritual person, deeper within myself, to understand like what myself and how I connect to the world and how I should be moving in that sense. But it's very destabilizing when you know, you feel like that, and I feel like it's a normal part of adulthood as well, though. I don't know. I feel like I need to normalize this, because I can't be the only person that feels like that. But it is destabilizing, especially when you're not, do you know what I mean, surrounded by the same people in like a particular environment. You might not have a good relationship with your family or whatever. You may have a limited amount of individuals. Like a lot of people only see their friends periodically, do you know what I mean? And it's the same with me. Like I do have a relationship, you know, at the moment, but like, because it's easy, I don't know, it's just sometimes when you don't know like the deal in a situation, when you're so used to the certainty of being on a track that you can control yourself, and then you are just yanked off that track, feeling as if you have to, do you know what I mean, go down it. Because I don't know, like it's interesting to me, the feeling that I have around things like divine timing, and feeling like the universe is guiding things in a very specific way, to the point where it's actually not possible to really veer off that path, because you know, it's really, it like, you know, if the universe wants you to be exposed to something by the law of contrast or whatever. I say by the law of contrast because obviously we all have to experience all things at all times, in particular different ways. If the universe wants you to experience that, you will experience that. This is my personal belief system on this, and with that feeling like you're kind of not inevitably, but you're like stuck in a cycle or in a situation that you just have to like slog it through. Kind of sucks. I feel like it's a bit of a narcissistically, you know, influenced mindset, because I suppose we all do have free will, and we do all have will of choice, but sometimes you can actually see the logic behind the experiences you're having, and I suppose to one degree you would argue, if you're in a shit place, to consider what it could be logically that's going to upset you, and then make healthy action, I suppose, to make a different choice. Because it's this thing for me of sticking through a difficult situation, or sticking through kind of a healthy like time of struggle, in order to transcend and grow from it, versus exiting stage left, which we all have the ability to have. And as someone that is quite avoidant, can be quite anxious avoidant, it's quite easy for me to just skip to the straight mindset of, right, I'm out. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, sometimes realistically, it's like anything. It's like when you're doing your education and stuff, it's hard, but you're like, realistically, I signed up for something, so I'm just going to do it. Do you know what I mean? I'm just going to actually force myself to do it. And you end up getting the benefits from it. And if nothing else, I mean, you do get quite a lot of benefits from it, but the best thing for me was staying power. Do you know what I mean? And like actually having the reward mindset of like sticking through something, you know, and there is something to be said for that. Especially when, and what's really annoying as well is when I believe on a spiritual level, like, you can't always see from an external perspective what is good for you and what you need. Sometimes like your inner self will tell you what you need, but sometimes if it's come from a place of being traumatized, aka you didn't feel supported in aspects in childhood, for example, I feel like, oh my god, okay, sorry about that. So wasp attack again. I feel like, for example, again, I feel like if for me it was like not feeling supported through different traumas and stuff that I had in childhood makes me feel like it's a big coping strategy for me to just exit situations. And I actually think culturally, or like in life in general, it can actually be quite a glamorized thing to be like, I know my worth when I leave, I know my worth when I say no to things. Like, there's a difference between saying no and doing things you want to do and not saying no, and thinking, oh, I don't really like these family members, but I'm going to push myself through this interaction because, do you know what I mean? There's something to be said for sticking something out. Like, I sound like such an adult, and there's nothing wrong with, especially in younger years, and the anxieties that come with that, to ditch out of situations. But I also think like it's quite glamorized to be like, oh, like, I don't need to take no shit, like, if I exit this situation, like, I'm like powerful and I love myself and I don't let anyone like interfere with my life. But realistically, is that what you're saying to yourself when you're sat there on a uni desk, or you're doing a 9 to 5 and you're sat there in the shittiest job in the world because you're just trying to pay your bills? Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, you have to stick through things sometimes to grow. I don't know, I guess it's just that balance, really. But I suppose I think it's always important for those runners like myself to keep in perspective that you've always got will of choice in your actions, and to make the choices that best suit you, but just to weigh up that, like, you can leave, but is it the best decision to, in situations? And it's also okay to, I suppose, give yourself that leeway, because some people swing like that and some people don't. To give yourself that leeway of being like, you know, or like, I do swing this way, I don't actually need to, you know, be one of those people where I'm like, I know exactly what I want straight away, I don't faff around. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? This way of being, it's not to torture yourself into trying to pretend that you're going to be like something you're not, and just to, I suppose, just to support yourself, because I think it's also one of those things that's like childhood unconditioning of like, if you have a parent, like, I had quite a petulant parent, one of them, and I felt like very, if I was to like faff around, or like, do you know what I mean, I didn't really have that time to faff around. If I was to faff around, it'd be like very much like, oh, come on then, just like get on with it, like, you know, there was no time for that, there was no like time spared for that. So I feel like as an adult, it's really to be like, not so, it's a very like I'm very unsupportive of myself in that mindset, and it's really kind of not very healthy, I suppose, in that sense. But yeah, this is why I do these type of videos, because, do you know what I mean, it heals me, it helps me discuss things, and I think sometimes it's just easier to watch someone else go through something and be like, oh my god, I can so relate to that. I love seeing these videos, I've said this before, I love seeing these videos where it's like, oh my god, I needed this today, whether it's a fucking Instagram post, which is why I like Instagram a bit more now, actually. I used to think Instagram was like such a vain thing, like where people just like post like like gym pics and stuff, but it's just not. Actually, there's a lot of people on there that like really do things, post things that are really, really helpful to listen to. But yeah, I am going to exit stage left now. Having said that, no, I'm joking. I'm going to end the video. I'm going to say no more to the video. No. But it's just, I think it's sometimes just introspecting, and I think a lot of people do that in different ways. It's sometimes I just feel called to make a video because I like to use it as a way to reflect on myself, and I also like to post them for my own reasons, but you know, obviously to connect to other people. But like journaling is a great way, I feel like, also to do this, but it's hard. It's sometimes it's cool to see like yourself from an unbiased perspective sometimes to make videos, but you know, you can't, sometimes to get another person's perspective isn't always the optimal choice when going through a situation. But I think from experience, validating yourself at any stage of life is always going to be helpful, and actually to just sit there and understand from a place of okay, if I'm validated, then what's going wrong here? Like, what am I worrying about? Do you know what I mean? And then if you can understand that, it's like, okay, cool, well, I actually get now that like X, Y, and Z is what I'm feeling like because of whatever reason. But yeah, so hopefully I can fit that in the title somehow. Thanks for listening. And amen to me for talking in public and having lots of people pass me and not really having much interest in them. So yay.